for you not to worry, because I'll still be there as you grow up.
Phil Newby was diagnosed with motor neuron disease 9 years ago.
What would you say about your life people watching at home might not understand or know?
Two things. I think one is that it's about that disability and illness. I'm obviously disabled, but I'm also ill. So I guess the feeling, what it feels like from the inside, is being in the wheelchair with bad breathing and a lot of paralysis, but also having the flu. I guess that's kind of, that's what this feels like.
And how much does dignity and loss of autonomy come into it for you? Because we talk a lot about suffering, but for some people, the indignity of needing help constantly is another really big factor.
I do see just increasingly my dignity and my humanity being stripped away, and everything that I do being governed by rotors and machinery and equipment, and that is really hard, because I've so little kind of good choice in how to live, and everything I do, everything is so obviously restricted. And amazingly, I can still talk, yeah. And if that goes, which there's a high chance of, that will be really hard.
Phil, who lives in Rutland in the East Midlands with wife Charlotte and their daughters, Jess and Sasha, began campaigning after living with MND for 5 years, when he faced an agonising decision as his muscle function declined.
My abilities becoming increasingly disabled, and I sort of realised as winter approached in 2019 that I was running out of options, that if I wanted to have any control over my life, and what I mean is my death, that I'd have to do something myself. I thought that this was a time that I would have to commit suicide, and if I missed that window, I would just have to go wherever the disease took me. And and I was really crossed by that, just because it was an agonising sort of personal decision, and one that maybe I sort of bottled and perhaps shouldn't have done. And I was lying there thinking that it's just not a civilised thing to do and shouldn't be part of a civilised country, that I was in this position, and that took me and us to the next stage, which was challenging the law in the High Court.
Phil has previously requested a judicial review to determine whether the UK's ban on assisted dying was compatible with his human rights. But his case was rejected by the High Court and Court of Appeal. Phil does not know if he would ultimately choose to end his life if assisted dying were permitted, but it would act as an insurance policy if his suffering became unbearable.
If assisted dying were legal in the UK, what difference would that make to you and your family?
I think it will make no difference for me, because it wouldn't come in time. But I think the difference it could have made is that, as much as anything, it's an insurance policy, that if things get too bad and too rough and unbearable, they can choose to end their lives. There's an awful lot of fear, I think, that anyone will know in illness, in grave illness. Knowing that you can put a stop to it at a certain stage is really important. But I'm fearful of a bad death.
And I suppose that defining exactly what we mean when we talk about legalising assisted dying would take away some of the arguments against at the moment that wouldn't really apply.
The law in this country that people want to bring in is for terminally people at the end of their lives, adults who are mentally competent. It's no wider than that, and the argument keeps getting dragged back into euthanasia that happens in the Netherlands, or that kind of thing. And we need to look at actually what's being proposed and work out how it will work here, and then people can make a decent decision about whether they want it or not. I actually think we're well set up. Our medical system, our legal system, and our law enforcement it will be ready for this and will be able to cope. But knowing where the gaps and challenges are is important, and seeing them in front of the event so we can craft a good law. That has to be done now.
Life did not only change for Phil when he was diagnosed. Over the past decade, his family have been through it with him. It's a journey that has seen his daughter Sasha grow from a child to a woman.
So I was about year 6, year 7, something like that. So I was, 11? So I didn't really know a lot that was going on, and you never really told me about the day you were diagnosed.
It's because you were little, and because it is such a painful memory for us. You go inside yourself, and then we just had to pull ourselves back together, and we had to sort of carry on, wondering, just as we came over our own, overcame our own shell shock, and that took probably a few days. I remember phoning Grandma, my mum, and that was awful. That was terrible, and yeah, and then we told you a kind of a heinous lie. It was a white lie, but that I had been diagnosed with something nasty, and for you not to worry, because I'd still be there as you grow up.
I don't think we quite knew the magnitude. I don't think you even let on the magnitude of it, but I don't think we understood it. And because you were kind of well.
And we said that, that I was going to die early, but I guess this was the bit where it felt terrible to say that I would die early, but not while you were children. So, I guess for a kid, that's right, isn't it? Because childhood goes on forever.
And you see your parents as indestructible. You don't really, I don't know, you don't see your life without them. So I don't think if you say, you'll be fine through childhood, I guess you'll be fine,
Really what the doctor said was, you now need to go home and put your affairs in order. That's the kind of thing you never think you'll hear. It was hard. It's an awful thing for a parent to do and live through, and it's not easy for someone who's young to experience the illness of a parent.
We have a lot to overcome just to do very, very simple things as a family.
Yeah, that places a great burden on you guys, and I see that and I feel it. Of course, I really feel it.
For the assisted dying restrictions, they are so tight for what you want. You're not asking for the world, really. You're just asking for a very small thing in the whole scheme of things, and that is just to be dignified and to end suffering. And I don't see why anyone would disagree with wanting to end suffering. One day you might have to be put in that situation, and if you are, you want to know that there is a choice. You don't have to do it, but it's good to know that there is that safety net of a choice if you do unfortunately get put in a situation like you, really. Yeah. No offence.
Yeah, and as your mum often says, this is about shortening death. It's not about taking away life. It's about shortening unpleasant death.